Are you ready?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Parishscope. This is the podcast that acts kind of basically as an arm of our newsletter here at St. John Stand Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Doremus. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran.
All right. Well, it's been a while. It's actually
has.
been a long while. Especially since we started doing this kind of more or less more remote. We've kind of had a lot happen, a lot going on. I know the end of the school year is upon us, and that makes you busy because of your wife's job at the school.
Yep.
And she works at Washington, right? The public school.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why we moved over there, because she works at Washington Middle School, and that's actually where I went growing up. And,
sure.
It's kind of funny because we realized that's where my dad went, that's where my grandpa went, and
wow.
I never really was like, oh man, I have to have my kids go to that school too.
Yeah, lots of history there.
Yeah,
interesting.
A lot of generations.
So that's been keeping you busy, and of course I've had confirmation Sunday, and then I got married.
You got married?
I did. I got married.
It was very exciting.
Yeah, it was. I don't know who it was, but somebody mentioned that they counted about 218 people there. So
oh wow.
So had a good number of folks that came out, and appreciated everybody that showed up for our big special day. Tried to keep it relaxed as much as we could. But yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to do the bonfire.
Yeah.
That was kind of a bummer.
The stack of wood though, it looked glorious.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah.
One day we will burn that pile. One day. Yes. I don't know when, but one day.
It's incredible, yeah.
And it keeps getting bigger because I feel like every time I got some boards and stuff, I'm like, I'll throw it on there.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a mountain that grows. But we still had roasted hot dogs and everything. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, so the big thing is like, of course, over the last several weeks, we've missed out on a lot of news and such. And, we have a new pope.
Yeah.
We don't. We don't. I'm not kidding.
Well,
so anyway, the Catholic Church, they have a new pope.
They got a new pope. Yeah.
They got a new one. So anyway.
And making history, he's from Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, not only is he from the United States, but he's actually from Illinois. He's from Chicago.
Crazy.
He hasn't spent actually a ton of time in Illinois. When he was a kid, of course, he was here, but and I know he was in some churches up there, but he also did a lot of time doing mission work. And so he spent a lot of time elsewhere as well. Yeah, but still very interesting. Lots of jokes going around, claiming things like he's going to make communion like pizza and beer or nachos and beer or whatever else it happens to be. I saw them. Yeah, right. I saw one meme that said that they were going to make Mike Ditka, the old coach, into a saint.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. So anyway, just a good time had by all, or at least had by some. With that, I will say this. So one of the things I actually missed last time, and I'm kind of kicking myself because like somebody even mentioned this to me like right before our podcast last time. When we were talking about the death of Pope Francis. And I never mentioned, but he was actually the first Jesuit Pope. And that is significant.
Now, I know what that means, of course. But let's say if someone doesn't know, what's a Jesuit? Did I even say that right?
Well, you froze, at least on my end for a second.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
we'll go incognito. What is you said Jesuit?
Yeah, Jesuit. So Jesuits are typically known for their education. A lot of them are incredibly educated, incredibly smart folks. They come from you know, oh, what was the guy's name? He's of course sainted in the Catholic Church, but definitely not in the Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
He came out around the time of Luther. I can't put an exact date on him, but it's like Irenaeus of Loyola.
Okay.
Um, it's where like Loyola University would get their name.
Okay.
So it would be from him. But anyway, he swore fealty to the Pope of all things. Um, and that was one of the significant markers. And then, of course, of the whole aspect of trying to be incredibly educated, incredibly, you know, I guess evangelical in a sense. They were very mission orientated as well.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean I mean again, I don't know. Right off the top of my head, believe it or not, I don't know what like the true definition of a Jesuit is. I guess I can Google it, but this is how I remember the Jesuits is in terms of their just overwhelming education.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And so the Pope who passed away, he was a Jesuit, you said?
Yes, and
Okay.
he was the first a Jesuit pope. He was the first one.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
And this is
Ignatius of Loyola was the guy who, not Irenaeus, but Ignatius.
oh, okay.
All right.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
this to me the craziest part about all this is just a guy from Chicago. I mean, he has to speak Italian, right? Is that am
I don't know
I
about Italian, Latin, I guess. He had to
Latin?
speak Latin.
I mean, don't they usually speak Italian there in the Vatican? Or no?
I don't know the answer to that. I always
Oh,
assumed it was Latin, but maybe it is Italian.
I don't know. I thought it was. I mean, because when everybody does a
See,
impression of
now
the Pope, it's always like I'm with the Pope. Like it's like they do a very like Mario, uh, sort of thing with it. But you know,
no, it is Italian. Yeah, I just looked it
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, I'm just a basket of no information tonight. That's honestly that's what it comes down to. Like I feel usually I come in here and I'm like I know lots of stuff, and now it's like tonight I'm like I just don't know that. I don't.
Well, and tonight I'm just killing it with the stereotypes. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
But yeah, so it is. I mean, again, though, I kind of getting back to the Pope, first United States Pope. Um, I don't even know how many times they voted. It went really quick.
yeah. It seemed like it went by pretty quick because it only took I don't know how many days. If it even I don't even know if it took that many days or because what was I think you said it last time that there's so many days until they start the process of deciding.
Yeah, there's like a mourning period for the previous Pope, and then after that they have kind of a set period. They get the cardinals together, and then they kind of start the process. And once the cardinals are all together, they have a process that lasts. It can last up to like something like 13, 14 days, or
Ah,
something like that. Where they
yeah,
take votes and they can only vote so many times a day, and so on and so forth. But like I felt like I was just getting ready to see the coverage of the various smokes coming out of the Sistine Chapel. Because
yeah,
remember, black smoke meant that, the vote was inconclusive. White smoke,
right,
you had a new pope.
right.
Um, but honestly, I don't even think I saw the black smoke. It was like next time I turned around, everybody's like, "Well, they got a pope," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, that's what
okay,
I was waiting for some of that, like to see something, some article about like debates or discussions or firing up or something, and it was just like, oh, here's the Pope. I was like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah." From everything I've read about him, and I've read a little bit here and there. Um, I think I understand more or less why he got chose, though.
yeah,
Um, he was, I mean, there's a lot of countries that very much wanted the next pope to kind of come from them,
mm,
and but they wanted it for power reasons, or at least, again, I think a lot of people speculated they'd want it for power reasons.
right,
There's some kind of prize for having the pope come from your land, um,
right. I'm sure.
and the United States, on the other hand, has never had a pope. So had a pope come from the United States. So that was part of it. And I think the other part of it is like you've had two popes. Pope Benedict was incredibly conservative,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had Pope Francis, which was very much not conservative. Like he
Yeah.
was in terms of Catholicity, he was a very liberal pope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think really you do have kind of that middle of the road found with this Pope Leo the 14th,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is the name that he chose, not his actual name, but the name that he chose to go by in terms of as a pope. They get that choice to, what will you be called, kind of thing.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
they can just pick any name?
yeah. I mean, I don't know
Wow.
about any name. I don't know what kind of requirements they have. Um,
I mean, what's his actual name? I don't remember off the top of my
oh
head.
man, I don't remember either.
I
Now
just
look at me. I'm going to Google it.
yeah. I mean, well, you just said he's a.
Wild podcast tonight, everybody. I Googled stuff.
uh, I just wonder, like, is it are these names something within his name in some way, or is it he's
No,
just
no, no,
like,
no.
I like Leo or whatever,
So
or I like
it's his name is his name at birth was Robert Francis Prevost.
okay, and then you said it's now what?
Pope Leo the 14th.
Huh? Interesting. That's a very I now know that's so strange to me, but okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, in going back and reading through some of the stuff, honestly though, he is very kind of middle of the road, I guess I'd say. He's very tactfully addressed certain things. He's held to most Catholic values that I can tell. Which means he's against things like homosexual marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and the like. But at the same time, he's kind of kept his head low a little bit on certain things, and so to some degree, it's like he's not like Benedict, who is very, rigid and, kind of hardcore in that regard, but he's also not liberal like Francis was. He's not going to
Yeah,
necessarily mince words, just to kind of get favor. And I think that's a huge part of the reason why I think he was chosen was because, at the end of the day, he's just such a middle of the road guy.
yeah,
So, and
yeah, and I'm sure they probably. I mean that seems probably like an appealing thing for a leader like that.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and again, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, usually we don't think of the church in terms of these kinds of politics, but the reality is that like, here we are looking at the Catholic Church and we see this kind of politics all over the place. Is he liberal? Is he conservative?
Mm-hmm.
Where does he fall on this issue and that issue? And it's like, that's one of the things that we're seeing kind of dissected now that he's there. Like, okay, here's where he stands with this. We do know though his brother is very much a very outspoken Trump supporter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Um, yeah, I guess he lives in Florida, from what I heard.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, moved out of the great state of Illinois
yeah. Oh,
and over to
yeah. The
Florida.
great state. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure that'll get some people riled up, but yeah,
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But again, it's been kind of interesting to follow and just kind of get into it a little bit. I will say, it's kind of fun. Like we have in the Central Illinois district, we have our district level, elections and stuff coming up. So I can kind of sense some of that kind of starting up. I think the current president of our district, we do he to maintain his term, he'll have to be voted in again, kind of. But to be
oh,
honest, all things considered, he's really done a great job. So I
yeah,
I don't foresee him being not reelected. I guess I would say,
yeah, yeah.
um, you
Do
know
they have terms like term limits? I mean,
that I don't know.
I wonder. I just kind of I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's something to investigate. I don't know if they have term limits or not.
Yeah,
You know, again, in the politics of things, I just don't get. I really don't get into the politics of it very much.
Yeah.
Um, which is like, so I go to these conventions and I'm like, well, if they have term limits, somebody else will call them out for it. Like, you know,
Right. Yeah.
like I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about brain space for that. Um, I know it's awful, but it's true.
No, well, you got a lot to worry about, or to focus on. So, you know, and that stuff, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure, when you're kind of the boots on the ground sort of person, I'm sure that stuff is interesting, but it's to your day to day life. I'm sure it's not affected. I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe you can tell me for sure, but I would assume that sort of stuff doesn't affect you as much as I don't know, as some people may think. Because I think when you're just working every week, preparing a sermon, doing everything you need to do. I mean, I don't know if you really have time to sit there every week and go, well, what did the regional president or whatever you
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
what do they have to say this week?
Yeah. Our district president. And I don't,
District president.
you're right. I mean, again, he has like publications and stuff come out on the district level. And admittedly, I just don't read that much. But again, in terms of the day to day operation of things, by and large, things for me have not changed.
Right.
I do know he is a little bit more conservative than the previous administration, you might say, the
Yeah.
previous district president. Um, but that being said, I don't see a huge movement in that. There's definitely been a few things here and there that I've noticed been a little bit more conservative, but honestly, by and large, I have not seen much of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then we have our big synodical one. Now, that's not this year, it'll be next year.
Mm.
Now that one will be a big one because we've had a guy acting as our president for quite a while now, by the Reverend Dr. Matthew Harrison is his
That's
name.
right.
Yeah,
Matthew Harrison.
that's right.
We've talked about him before. I remember.
Yeah, and he's a fairly conservative guy. He's actually, in my opinion, done a fairly good job. But again, I will say that just like anything, his support is starting to wane a little bit. And I think that's just it, right? You stay in office long enough, you're eventually going to do some stuff that your base doesn't like, and
Yeah.
so you
As
know,
as they say in Batman, you live long enough to become the villain. Is that
yeah,
the sort of
yeah.
idea? Like,
And
yeah,
exactly. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there's definitely been some stuff that Harrison has done that I didn't love, but
yeah,
again, at the same time, I've been kind of like, well, he's not done a bad job. You know?
yeah. Well, yeah. What's funny is we've talked about how politics kind of sucks you in sometimes, and I got a little involved in like the local politics around
Yeah,
here
you did.
with the whole amphitheater thing. Well, they elected, basically there was two people running for mayor. One was pretty much like, what, the old boys have been doing this forever. We know what we're doing. We're just going to keep things the way they are. That's kind of
Hmm.
and then there was a whole another side where it was like, well, people need to be informed. They need to know what's actually going on. It's a lot of just kind of stuff under the table that's happening, and we don't want that. And so the
Hmm.
person who was much more like, I want things to be public, was the one who won. So that was great. But now I'm trying to remember what my point was with this. We were talking about,
But
but
how
no.
interesting
Oh
politics
yeah,
in
yeah.
general are. Yeah.
But it was just funny because she got elected in, you know, um, May 5th,
Yeah.
and I think it was like the end of April. Wait, April, June, sorry, yeah, April. That I had a guy I was talking to. He brought up the local politics, and he said something like, "Well, I'm going to give it to that mayor if she's, she better start doing some work." And I'm like, "She hasn't even gotten into office yet."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm still. She better blah blah." Blah. And it was like, she hasn't even. She hasn't even gotten in. It's like, calm down.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
because it was like he's like, "Oh, I voted for her." I'm like, "And you're already mad at her, and she hasn't even gotten into office yet."
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on? So that was kind of funny. Like, I mean, you have, or maybe not funny, but you have to laugh to keep from crying, sort of thing. Um, but yeah, eventually, you just can't please everybody. Unfortunately,
No.
there's always going to
Yeah.
be something that either you're too conservative or you're not conservative enough, or whatever it may be. Um, so,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
overall, he's been pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, again,
For you
overall,
say,
he's been pretty good. I mean, again, I think he started out very much with like a fire at his feet, like let's get stuff done, and like a lot of these guys, and like anybody who gets into politics, like that's always the way it is. Like, right, you
yeah,
start off and you're like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna change the world, and then you kind of get into it and you get bogged down, and all of a sudden reality sets in, and you're like, okay, well, I'll settle for these few changes. Like,
right,
you know,
yeah,
it's like, in a lot of ways, though, I mean, that has been one of the fascinating things about this second term of Trump is the fact that it's almost like from the first term he learned some mistakes,
yeah.
and then now all of a sudden, and it's like, honestly, there have been so many stories with him, and it's
Oh
just
yeah,
hard to keep up. He is
oh
doing
yeah,
stuff so fast, and
yeah.
from a political perspective, it's like enough to make your head spin.
Oh yeah,
Whether you love it
major.
or hate it, you're just it doesn't matter. You're still overwhelmed. You're just like, oh my god.
Well, they're everywhere. It's just crazy. I mean, I remember, within the first like 2 weeks of them being sworn in, it was like JD Vance was over at this place giving a speech to
Yeah,
these people affected by a hurricane or something, and then
yeah,
he's here, and it's like, man, these guys are everywhere. They're like, they must
yeah.
just be on a plane all the time, like
Oh, for
going all
sure.
over the country. Um, but I think for them, they probably that period in between where when Biden was in office, I think that was probably like almost a good thing because they could regroup and plan like this is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. They could actually reflect on their first term or his first term. You
yeah,
know.
if he went straight into the next one, I think he would have been still dealing with all the same issues from the first term. And
Yeah,
so and again, love him or hate him, it's just I don't know. I find it very fascinating.
yeah.
Um,
And again, that's all you can say. It's been very fascinating.
yeah, yeah. There's just a lot going on, and it's they're moving, you know, they're moving 10 miles a minute. They're just going. It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
Um, yeah. When someone gets upset by something, within about 24 hours, there's about 6 other stories. So it's like you can't even really stay mad for long enough until something else happens. So it's just like, you know,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. What were we talking about a week ago?
well, we were talking to Matt about Matthew Harris.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Mr. Matthew Harrison, Reverend Doctor,
Reverend
uh,
Doctor.
Reverend
Yeah,
Doctor. But yeah, no. Again, I think like overall, I think Harrison's actually done a really good job. I know he's a little bit more conservative than what a lot of people would like, but I will say this though. There's something about Kieschnick was kind of the guy that whenever I was in seminary and everything, he was our president, and like you know, Kieschnick to me personally, he just felt a little too liberal for me. It
oh
almost felt like he was like a closeted Baptist, like just trying to and not saying that he didn't, like, but just in terms of like his evangelism models and everything, it just felt very Baptisty and not
yeah,
Lutheran. And like
yeah,
that's one of the things like with Harrison is like, okay, so yeah, he's a little bit more conservative than maybe we would prefer, but at the same time, it's like at least he's Lutheran, and at least he's unabashedly Lutheran. Like,
yeah.
and there's
Now,
really something refreshing, as a Lutheran pastor about that.
yeah.
So,
Well, since I don't know how many you may know this number being around it, but maybe not. Do you know how many seminaries there are like in the United States for Missouri Synod Lutheran?
oh, that's easy too.
Two. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, just two.
So, um, so like with those presidents, when you were in seminary, did he ever come like make an appearance or like come talk to you guys or?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, okay. I would assume since it's not like
It's right
it's
down the
all
road.
over the world. Yeah, I would assume it's probably like you're probably. I'm sure. Sorry, I'm stuttering around because I'm thinking faster than I can talk.
Yeah.
But um, so would you say like maybe that was a lot more on your mind at the time in college or in seminary because it was so like, oh, they're right down the road? Did it?
Again, it's altogether possible, and you're in a school environment, like, and
Yeah,
again, you know how it is in a school environment. Like again, you're when you're a pastor at a local church, you're like, okay, can I get my shut-in calls done? I got sermons to write, I got Bible studies to lead. I don't
yeah,
have time to really sit around and just think, dare I say. You
yeah,
know, um, you hope you get some chances to do that, but you don't a lot.
uh
And
huh,
so the same kind of goes in terms of this, like, whereas, when you're in seminary, you have a lot more time to just process and think and listen to professors and what they have to say. And
hmm,
because of that, you end up getting a little bit more into the weeds of it all. You
yeah.
know,
Oh,
once you get out, you're just kind of like, you know.
yeah. Well, yeah, reality hits a little bit. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think that's true for. I mean, we've had that discussion a lot. That's true for I think like all
Oh,
college
sure.
courses. There's a lot of things you get taught. Like me going into music, you get taught a lot of things in music, and then you get out of it, and you're like, eh, that was a good idea in theory, but when you're
Yeah.
actually in the real
Yeah.
world, not so much.
Or maybe it would work over here, but it's not going to work over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of like one of those deals.
yeah,
So, yeah. So for sure, for sure. So, man, all right. Well, we took a good long time about that.
yeah. Well,
So do I remember correctly? Do you have a question tonight?
I do. Now this is
So
a
excited.
pretty pinnacle one. I don't know
Hugely
if pinnacle
pinnacle.
is the right word. That's what I do.
Critical.
When I try to sound smart, I start using words I don't really know what they mean.
It's a
Um, but
it's a critical question, is what it is. It's deeply important.
right. But
So important.
here's the true. This is the question that I think a lot of people don't know the answer to. Are we allowed to sit in the front row?
Oh man. Oh, this is so deep.
The very front row, like not
Oh
the
man.
second row, the front row.
Oh man. If you're not allowed to sit in the front row, it's because the praise band keeps putting all their stuff on there.
That's
No, I'm joking.
I know. I know. In certain
I honestly,
situations,
honestly, I just had to say that to to jab you a little bit.
I know. That's what in certain situations, like you can't because yeah, there's people right there. But
No, actually, it's really a good thing to sit in the front row. If you've never done it, I always tell people you should try it. Like, I
yeah,
guess I don't tell a lot of people that. It's not like, um, there. Honestly, that used to be advice, like back in the 50s and 60s and stuff.
yeah,
If you read some books from back then, they would flat out tell you, like, if you have, you know, problem children, so to speak, you should sit them in the front row.
really, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, the pastor comes off as a lot more intimidating when he's right there.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And so the kids don't want to mess up. They're like, "Oh no."
yeah. Got to be quiet. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. I might have to start doing that because we've been kind of sitting in the back row.
Mhm.
But I grew up as a person who sat in the front couple rows. Um, in fact, it was always kind of a joke because there was another family. Whoever got there first would take the second row, and then
Uh,
whoever got there second would take the third. And so it'd always kind of be like, you got us, this time or whatever, like
yeah.
jokingly to
Yeah.
each other. Um, but but I've told this story to people before. But I had a friend who said something. I said like, hey, yeah, come sit with us up here. And he said, I'm not sitting in the front row. Everybody watches you. And I said,
Yeah.
no, they don't. What are you talking about? He goes, you don't know that. And I was like, oh, you're right. I don't, because I don't sit in the back. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. But I don't know. I just think it's funny because, even at our Savior, it's like there's no praise band in the way or
Yeah.
anything. But still, people just kind of avoid that front row. It's like, oh, I can't sit in the front row, you know?
Yeah. 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 Well, like I
Every,
said, I always think it's funny because that used to be like the sage advice. Oh, do you have a problem child? Like, go up front.
yeah.
Trust me. Trust me. Go up front.
I,
And you still hear that from time to time, and it can actually help, depending. A lot of kids
Uh
just
huh.
don't care anyway, but like, it can help to get them to sit and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, no, there's nothing wrong with sitting in the front. It can be a good thing actually.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are still very intimidated. It's like, again, the pastor or whoever is like looking right at you. Oh
Yeah.
no.
It's just, and we all have kind of our like people get locked into their seats. There's nothing wrong with that. I get it. You got a place, you like it, you keep
Yeah.
sitting there. Um, but I kind of wonder. It's interesting if you just kind of like move around every once in a while and see what it's like. You might never know. You might find something you like more.
Oh no, no, no. You gotta
Uh,
you've had that pew handed down from generation to generation.
that is true. Yeah, that's true.
Names have been carved into the book, the annals.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like growing up, I was the same way. Like we used to sit in the basically the front row of the balcony seating.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and it kind of is funny because you described your story, and I remember for us it was the same way. We had this one family that, like, if they beat us, they would sit in the very front, and then we had to sit right behind them. And
Yeah.
then if we got there beforehand, like, so yeah, it's like this battle for the front row in the balcony section.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
it's not quite the front row, but the front row of the balcony.
yeah. See, I think that's I don't know. I think we've talked a little bit about just like certain things that are fun about church.
Hmm.
And like I always say, not growing up with tradition, I always kind of viewed that as a like, oh man, traditions, it's like crazy. But it's fun. It's fun to get into that. And it's kind of fun when you have like a pew rival,
Oh yeah,
like a
yeah,
little
yeah.
like, man, who's gonna get it today? It's kind of fun, you know,
Oh man.
banter back and forth. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's fun. It is fun.
Do you
Um,
do you remember the name of the people who were the last name of the family?
oh, for sure I do.
See, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but
I know they're a great family.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So yeah, they're just a great bunch. Love them to death. They still attend. I get to see them every now and again, like once in a blue moon, whenever I get
Oh yeah.
back to St. John's and Beaufort,
Yeah.
um, which is not very often, as you
Yeah.
can imagine.
That's funny. Are your parents still fighting them out for that seat?
Oh
Do you
man,
know?
the fight is real. I don't know. I haven't asked them recently. So
Yeah.
I know the last time we went, we won. We
Yeah.
won. So
Well, I'm gonna bring that up to my congregation that I asked a real
you asked, I asked if it was okay.
a certified Missouri Synod pastor, and he said it's actually okay to sit in the front row. So, in
Yeah,
fact, it's almost encouraged to sit up front.
certified, credentialed. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
we got it all, man. We got it all. Oh man. All right. Well,
All right.
I think we're ready for our other new segment.
Yes.
Let's see if I can do this here. And now, life and times of the saints. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. This one's not going to be quite as fantastic as some of the others, but that's okay. I think this is going to be fine. I'm going to call this "The Boy That Never Left Home." That's kind of the way I'm going.
Ooh. Okay.
So this boy was born in a time. Um, basically, he was born in England, but he was born in a time when England wasn't England, when kings ruled by violence, by the sword, and when monks ruled by the pen through this study. Well, I don't want to give you his name just yet, but let's just say it kind of rhymes or sounds like something you can put on a bracelet. So we don't have his last name. There's no fancy little title that went with him. Well, at least not yet, and really not even in the midst of his lifetime. At the tender age of 7, he was handed over to a monastery a monastery at Monk Wearmouth, which don't ask me if I've pronounced that correct. I'm pretty sure I didn't. But it's not exactly what you'd consider the childhood that most kids, anyway, would dream of. But this young man, he took to the life. He took to the monastic life like a fish to water. He read, he wrote, he studied, and when a plague came around and wiped out most of his fellow monks, he still kept going because that's what he did. He just kept going. The monastery was his home. And, well, he didn't want to leave. By the time he was 30, he was a priest. By the time he was 50, he was the most respected scholar in the land. He wrote about history, theology, science, even poetry. But his greatest work was called An Ecclesiastical History of the English People. It's kind of a mouthful, it really is. But it was a book that was so good, so thorough, that it earned him the title, the father of English history. But here's the kicker. He never left home. This young man never left the monastery. He never traveled to the world. He never sought fame. He just wrote. And when he died in 735 AD, his fellow monks buried him quietly. There was no fanfare. There was no grand procession. There was no giant announcement on the Megatron. There was none of that. It was quiet and it was calm. Now, of course, we wouldn't be talking here if history didn't have other plans. A few centuries later, the church gave him a new name, the Venerable Bede. For you see, that was his name. Bede, spelled B-E-D-E. And in 1899, Pope Leo the 13th, by the way, that would be the last Pope Leo before the more current one, made it official, at least in the Catholic Church, that Bede became a doctor of the church. So, not bad. Not bad for the boy that never left home. So, all right. So we're talking
Very
about
nice.
Bede today. Again, spelled B-E-D-E. The
Yeah.
celebration for Mr. Bede is actually going to be on Monday, Memorial Day, of
Oh.
all things. Don't necessarily have a drink for anybody today. I know it's sad that we don't have a drink, but we don't drink today. But honestly, I think any kind of English food would actually be a fitting thing. Fish and chips.
Fish and
Fish
chips.
and chips. Yeah.
What's so I was a road rep for Kidder Music
Yeah.
for a period of time, and there's a school up in Peru, Illinois, that is
Sure.
called St. Bede.
Yep, this would be him.
Yeah, that's cool. They every time I walked into that school, it was around lunchtime, and it smelled like just anything deep fried. It just, I mean, it honestly reeked of just fried food every time I came in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was just on that particular day. They always did like chicken strips. I don't know. But anyway, maybe they're frying fish, fish and chips.
It was just, they just really like fish and chips.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you to have fish and chips on Memorial Day being that a lot of times that's more of an American thing in terms of our focus, but maybe on Tuesday. I don't know.
You just do a fish fry.
Yeah, just do it. Just do a good old fish fry, and
have
an English ale.
There you go.
and celebrate good old Saint Bede. So
that's interesting. That's very interesting that he was so well accomplished as far as like writing, and he never really left.
Yeah, from 7 years old.
Yeah,
7. That just boggles my mind.
It kind of made me think, though, just because it's been on my mind, that's something that I think nowadays people can really do more and more with social media, that you can, from your own house, like you can affect the world. You can
Hmm.
put stuff out there, and as long as you're smart about it. Of course, there's lots of rambling posts that I've seen that don't do any good, but um,
Yeah.
just like people who have the ability to write, or the ability to make videos, or create art and stuff. There's things you can do, um, even if you aren't traveling the world or being all well networked or anything.
Hmm.
That's interesting that he did that and got all this material out there that was just from him sitting in the monastery thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And studying and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
studying. Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's a fascinating fella. Um, obviously big into, you know, English people.
Yeah.
I actually have his book somewhere. Again,
Yeah.
I look at my, library of books. Like I know it's in there somewhere. I just can't remember where.
Yeah.
Oh man, I went looking for a book tonight. I was at a stewardship meeting over at church, and I was looking for a book, and so I probably was back in my office for like 5-10 minutes looking for this book, and I was like, "Man alive, I can't find it." Um. Anyway,
How well organized are your books?
not very right now.
So
They'll
that's
get
just
better as time goes on because I'll shift them around.
yeah.
But because I was moving them out of my basement, because I moved, once I got married, and so basically because of that, I was trying to get everything out of my basement, at least my books. And when I did that, I just kind of put them in boxes and like hauled them over and
Hmm.
set them back on the bookshelf. So now they're all jumbled up. So yeah,
Yeah.
I need to reorganize them, and I'll get to it eventually. Just not right now.
Yeah. That's cool though. That's once you may have to get some people to help you and come. It might have to be a whole team of people organizing those books.
Team of people
Yeah,
organize my book on the Dewey Decimal System. No, I'm joking.
that's right.
No, I actually don't mind like the Dewey Decimal System. Well, in libraries, of course, it's great, but like in terms of my own personal library, like I like to keep sets together,
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and then, but then after that, when it's not a set, then I'm like, yeah, I want to do it by topic or subject.
yeah.
So best
Well,
I can. And
you'll just stand there, and people will just bring books to you, and you'll just say that pile, that pile, that
yeah,
pile.
yeah,
Just have them all labeled. You know,
we're hoping.
I just have a feeling this could be a project that could take you like a year to
Oh, for
get
sure.
organized.
For sure. Well, and again, one of two things are going to either happen. Either one, I'm going to actually organize it, or B, I will look at it so much that I'll end up memorizing where all the books are.
Oh,
And
that's true.
in which case, then it's kind of organized too, because I'm like, okay, I know where this is. So,
That's the one I would probably bank on in my own head, but I would never succeed. But I'll figure it out eventually.
well, after a while, going to this book and that book, you eventually like, oh yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
know where this is. So, anyway,
Very
but yeah,
nice.
so there you go, there you go. And again, the saint of the the week, I guess you would say, or however we want to put it, like these are not saints. We're not worshiping them. These are guys that lived good and faithful lives, and we're just respecting the faith that they have and showed forth. And
Yeah.
so there you go. That's why we look at Saint Bede. Um, you know,
Very nice.
oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, did you have anything else?
I have. So we don't do this segment much. This is for anybody who listened to like us at the very, very beginning,
Oh man,
or
do we have a Taylor
maybe
Swift?
huh?
Is it Taylor Swift?
No.
Oh, I thought I
So
was going to
we
guess it.
used to have a little kind of like a little segment, jokingly, that's called Casey's Famous.
Oh yeah,
You remember that?
yeah,
So
because you're
kind of,
famous.
yeah. I mean, there's some things that I'm uh, much like Saint Bede himself.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
I put some stuff out there in the world, and every once in a while things kind of come back.
Yeah.
I had this Sunday after church. my first uh, person recognizing me from my YouTube channel about
No,
Power Rangers. I
really?
Yeah, I came out of the bathroom and this guy was sitting with his family and he goes, "Hey," like very friendly,
Yeah.
like we knew each other. And I was like, "Hi." And I was like definitely a little confused. I'm like, I don't recognize this guy at all.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And he looked at me, he goes, "I know you." And I'm like, "Can you say your name? Because I don't know. I'm not. It's not coming to me." And he said his name was Matt. And then he goes, "This might sound weird, but do you by chance have a YouTube channel that talks about conspiracy theories related to Power Rangers?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And you know what's really cool about this though? He was so excited that he recognized me, and he stood up and he gave me a big hug, and then he asked if he could take a picture with
Oh
me,
my gosh.
and it was cool. I mean, it was just cool. And honestly, the thing that was cool about it to me was just that it like he was so happy that it made me happy. And I was like, this guy was so like, he was so stoked to like meet me, and he just, because I don't really share like where I live,
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
course. So this guy, he lives in
Dude.
Marquette Heights, and he's like, "I had no idea you like lived around here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I live in Washington." And so it was just it was a cool experience, honestly.
Heck yeah,
Uh,
Casey, you are
I've
famous.
never, yeah, I've never been recognized before, so that was kind of cool. But he introduced me to his family, and they were all like, "Yeah, he's a big Power Ranger guy." They didn't sound as stoked as him, but
What?
he
I
was he
believe
was
can't
super
believe that.
excited. So that's my little update. The first time I've been doing that, I think I've been doing that for 3.5 or 4 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've ever been recognized in public. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, man. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
change your appearance now. People are gonna come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's such a small community, really.
Yeah.
It's not even people who are like, "Oh yeah, I watch Power Rangers." You kind of have to be a pretty huge Power Ranger nerd to watch a lot of my stuff, enough to like recognize me, I would say. So like you have to be really really into it. So because I don't do stuff just along the basis of like trying to get the most views.
Yeah. No,
Um,
no, no.
because I find that stuff to be sometimes it's like people they focus on the bad things, or
Mhm.
they want to run some actor's name through the mud, and that's going to get the most views, and I just don't like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather just talk about the show and what's fun and what you can take away from it. So yeah, you have to be a pretty big nerd to know who I am. But it was fun
No,
nonetheless.
that's actually awesome. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
cool.
That was a fantastic, addition to our segment of Casey is Famous.
That's right.
Um,
We don't update it that often, but
yeah, we haven't for a while, but that's definitely a great addition. Um, and then of course, I think back to like some of our earliest episodes, and because when you said that, like, well, we haven't done this for a while, I was like, are you talking about Taylor Swift? 'Cause we did. We had a whole like our first, like, gosh, what was it, like 3 or 4 episodes?
oh, I
We
feel
had
like it
like a
was like our
four.
first 10.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we
We
had
talked
like
about Taylor Swift a lot,
we had
which
like
is funny because I'm really not a Taylor Swift person by any
yeah,
means.
no, 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 me either. But yet, at the same time, it was like, yeah, we talked about a lot about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And we had our reasons. Go back and listen,
Oh,
right?
she was very much in the news. Her concert caused an earthquake.
Absolutely, it did.
So,
Seismic activity on her
yeah,
Eras tour.
that's right. Now, recently, Metallica just did that too.
Yes, I heard.
Yeah, so
Ooh,
it's
big
happening
time.
more and more.
The world's coming to an end
Yeah,
because Metallica and Taylor
because
Swift.
of who would have thought the duo themselves?
Whoever would have thought? Oh man, I feel like it's a little early, but at the same time, like I don't have any other like great news stories to talk about. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about your fame forever, but I
Well,
just don't know.
the only thing, I saw, I don't know, we can just go into our last segment if you want. There's one more thing I could add if you want.
Oh, I want to see. I want to hear it now. We got time.
Well, I saw there was a reel um, online that was showing this church, and it's definitely a very large church.
Hmm.
The praise team is huge, and they have lights going off and fog machines and all sorts of crazy antics going on stage while they're doing a worship song. And they made this reel that was like, people say that this isn't worship, but not everybody can play an instrument or sing. And their point was talking about how the people who are doing the tech side of things, like the presentation or the lights or the soundboard, they're all a part of the team too, and they're worshiping. So when people say that this is just a performance, that they don't understand that this is okay because we're all like using our talents together. And which so that was kind of the premise. And when you get into the comments, there's a lot of discussion. But
Hmm.
I my kind of main thought is like, there's nothing wrong with people being involved in the church. Of
No.
course you want them to be involved. I mean, that's something I wish more people would come help out. Because they always say, you know. 20% of the church of the congregation does 80% of the work. That's always kind of a saying. But what the thing that gets me is I've learned a lot over the course of doing like my YouTube channel, that growing an audience is something you really want to do the right way.
Yes.
Like I said before about having, if you want to get into the drama and you want to start doing videos about actors and what the dark side of this and that, well,
Hmm.
you're gonna attract a lot of people, and you're going to probably get a lot of subscribers. But I've noticed with a lot of the people, other YouTubers, that they really go for that type of stuff because they know it gets the most views. When they try to put out a video about, let's say power, like if we're talking about Power Rangers, they try to put a video out about like something from the show, it gets almost no views because the audience they've built don't actually care about the show. They only
Yeah, they
care
just care about
about
the
the
dirt.
drama. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing I feel like with church is like, yeah, I mean, it's great if you have people involved, but it's still, if it's really just a performance, you're going to attract a lot of people. But as soon as a pastor gets up and says, sex before marriage is wrong, if those people, they really don't want to hear that, they just want it to be a performance, they want to feel good and go home,
Hmm.
they're going to eventually leave because, well, I don't like the way they're saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and that's kind of my thought when I was looking at that video, is like, growing your audience or growing a congregation is really important of how you do it. Because if people come in thinking, well, they have a great band and the pastor always preaches about how God loves me and I don't have to change anything about myself because he loves me, then you're kind of in a rough place, you know
Hmm.
and especially if that also encourages the pastor to maybe start, maybe just doing a little bit more positive messages instead of, maybe let's just focus on the good things and not bring up any of the fire and brimstone sort
Yeah.
of stuff, because that's going to bring the most people into the church. It's, I don't know, that's just my thoughts. I saw that today, so I don't know if you have anything else that sticks out in your brain about that. But
I mean, again, it's good to be involved in the church, but I don't want to, don't like sugarcoat the reality of all of that. Like, it's like, people that run soundboards and stuff. And again, honestly, like looking at it from the perspective of, St. John Sam Prairie, I don't think this argument really would be valid because most of those people that are involved, are definitely very worshipful. But at the same time,
yeah,
it's like if you're in a sound booth in essence, trying to crank a bunch of knobs to make sure that the sermon's voice sounds just right, when the pastor is speaking, it's like you're probably not getting anything out of that message. you're not, because you're not concerned with actually being devout, and you're not concerned with, his use of scripture, and you're not concerned with any of that. What you are concerned with is making sure that the sound and the audio is just right. And to be fair, that's your job, so that should
Right.
be your concern. But don't confuse that with, with ultimately with, like, oh yeah, I'm really into worship. Like, well, no, you know, I mean, honestly, when if there was a person like that, like, I would be like, hey, no, you should probably go to a different service as well as this one.
Yeah.
Actually have a time when you can just let go and relax, and actually hear, the word of God, and not be distracted by all these other things.
Yeah.
Now I say that, and again, we have sound people at our church, but honestly, like, most of them will, like, tweak a thing here or there, and then they're sitting really listening, and
Yeah.
unless
Right.
something goes horribly awry, they're focused on the message and on service. And even the praise band, I mean, you guys know, like, okay, yeah, there's practices and there's other things, and obviously you don't want anything to go horribly awry. But and again, part of this is the way we structure our services. It's like, but then you put your instruments down, you guys sit in the pew, you know.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you're, like, giving up your worship and only focused on the band, and only focused on the sound machine and the pyrotechnics, if that's what you guys do, or if people
Yeah.
do that. And it's like, I mean, again, it's just one of those things. Like, it's really important to actually be present in the service, and not just
Yeah.
present for a job.
Well,
And
and yeah, and I know lots of. I actually have been to several churches where the praise band, when the sermon starts, they leave.
yeah,
They aren't. They really don't. They don't listen to any of it. They just go in the back, and they just wait until it's someone comes over and says, "All right, you guys are going on in like 2 minutes or whatever."
yeah,
And I mean, it's kind of a weird thing because, yeah, I mean, in especially one of the churches I played at, it was such a job because they made us practice. We practiced for. I've never practiced that much for a service. It was crazy. We practiced
mhm,
probably 12 hours or something throughout the week. It was nuts. And so by the time you get to Sunday, you are kind of like you're kind of done. You're
yeah.
tired. You're exhausted. You don't really want to sit around and listen to a sermon. You just want to like relax. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, some of those some of those churches, the praise band does not listen to the sermon. They go
Yeah,
in the back. So, and maybe some do. I mean, I hope they do. But
yeah,
um, yeah, I just I also thought the argument of like getting us all in, getting all these people involved. They're worshiping too, so that means this can't be wrong.
yeah.
It's like, oh no, it definitely could be wrong. Churches,
Well, again, I
we're all
remember.
flawed.
Yeah, I remember whenever I was in seminary, and there was it was Dr. Brighton. He was the expert on the Book of Revelation. He was the Greek scholar on campus. He was emeritus. He was already pretty old by the
Yeah,
time I got there. Has since been, passed away. Um, but I remember him, and, like, he was very practical. I
yeah,
used to love his practicality in some of his stuff. But one of the things that he used to say is, like, look, you need time to do Bible study for Bible study prep, where you're going to lead Bible study, and this is for your congregation and this is for your members. And then he'd say, but you also need Bible study for yourself, where you're just
hmm,
studying the Bible, and it's not for anybody, and it's just for your own personal gain. It's for your own devotion. And I mean, again, the same thing really does apply. It's like, I can sit here and prepare a sermon, but there's still times whenever I just need to hear a sermon. You know,
right,
I need to hear somebody preaching to me, and I need to be convicted of God's law, and given His gospel. And that's one of the reasons that we have our circuit meetings. We actually have these circuit meetings that go once a month, basically, and we go
hmm,
to a church, and one of the brothers will preach a sermon, and it will be directed at us. And
yeah,
it's good for us to hear that and to be involved in that. So
yeah. That's
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, I think I have. gotten to the point where I feel like I need to start listening to more like new worship songs, because I honestly, I don't listen to a lot of worship songs because I do it every week, and I've heard a lot of these songs 100, 1,000 times. So sometimes I listen to it, but I'm like, I need to listen to some new worship songs that I've never listened to,
Yeah.
and just expand. Maybe I'll use them, but maybe I won't. But it's probably good for me to do that, because that's my job, is to lead worship, and if I'm not really allowing myself to be immersed in it, that's probably a problem. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
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 So
I mean, again, this is, you've kind of entered us into a topic that we could really talk all night on.
yeah,
Um, so
well, that's the
maybe,
best thing to do an hour into the episode.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Usually, but anyway, so yeah, so we should probably table this one. We'll have to come back to it because honestly, this is a really good conversation to have. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of people really do need to struggle with this and do battle with this and really, process and think this through because again, it is something that's very important.
Yeah.
So, so absolutely. However, in the meantime, with a brand new soundbite.
To our last segment, probably.
All right. Are we ready for
Yeah.
church chatter? Oh, we got
See that? See that? I missed.
you got you talking at the end. That's funny.
Well, what's really funny is the if you listen to the rest of it, the clip goes on and goes, "Oh, I think we got it. I'm going to go back and put that on the podcast. I'm going to clip that for the sound effect." So it's literally me saying, "Oh, I'm going to clip that for the sound."
Yeah. Yeah, for people listening, it's because being remote, we can never get it together. We can't say it at the same time because
We just
someone's
can't.
always delayed. So yeah, we had to get a soundbite from an old episode so that it sounds together.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we got a soundbite. So all right, church chatter. Boy, I'm trying to think about what's going on. Honestly, we've just had a very busy season with confirmation, with everything going on, but a lot of that is over now. Our last Sunday school was this past Sunday. We had our gospel houses, which was super exciting this year. Completely stole the idea from Harry Potter and modified it, but
Yeah.
yep. The Gospel House of John comes out the big winner.
Oh.
The Eagle. Yeah, you betcha. So it was pretty awesome. The kids loved it. They had a great time. They played games on Sunday. We got some more stuff coming for them. But I don't want to break all the surprises. But anyway,
Right.
but that was pretty exciting. But yeah, so confirmation is over. Easter's over. Sunday school's kind of over. I of course got married on Friday, so
Yeah.
that's
That's a big deal.
it was a huge deal, but it was awesome. You were there.
I was there.
So anyway, honestly, like looking ahead, I mean, obviously we're kind of going into the season of planning and trying to get things organized and ready. We got a pretty good sized funeral this coming Saturday. One of our members passed away, Don Lutz, and and it's one of those scenarios where he was a very active guy, and so even though he had a long kind of medical road leading up to this, it's still very much like it just feels like yesterday, like he was helping us with various projects and leading mission things, and it's like it's kind of wild from that standpoint. But we'll have his funeral on Saturday at 11 a.m. There's a short visitation before that from 10 a.m. to 11, and then on Friday from 4 to 7, there will be a visitation over at Preston Hanley. So anyway, so that's kind of like a lot of the big stuff going on. There's going to be a lot of music in that service, a lot of songs, a lot of choirs and stuff. So, and Don was a very musical guy. He was in Friends in Harmony. He was in the Peoria Civic Choir or whatever it was. So very, very involved in a lot of the musical stuff. So it's going to be it'll be a different type of funeral than I am accustomed to, but I think it's going to be gorgeous with all the music. So that's basically
Don
what's
was
going on around here. So anyway,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say Don was, when I was at St. John's, um, especially like I was there through the pandemic and everything, and we just had we had some singers who kind of stepped away, like kind of right when I got there, because there was a few people they would say are singing, and it was like they never sang once I started, but Don and Sheila both were like they were always there.
Yeah.
And so it was really like when things were kind of tough and we just didn't have, you could always rely on them that they were going to be there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. But so anyway, so that's what's going on around us. Obviously Memorial Day, our Memorial Weekend this coming weekend. So anyway, lots of stuff going on with that. But anyway, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
We are gearing up to make another call.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's going to be, starting up. I'm starting up our VBS band.
Yes, that's right. Do you guys got a new name yet?
We don't. I like to let the kids decide on what they want to do for that.
Sure.
Because it's, last year they named themselves Scuba Shrimp because the VBS was scuba. They're very, and I like to, I made little binders for them, and I made we had a logo and we put it on the front and everything. And the funny part is a lot of them, they all are students of my wife. And,
sure.
At the last concert just the other week, I was sitting in the bleachers and I heard one of them kind of like going like, psst, psst, at me. And I looked over and like three of them held up their binders and they say, the scuba shrimp binders.
Yeah.
So they're all using those for their binders at school. But, I like to let them pick out a name and kind of make the band theirs. And so we're going to have some younger siblings of some of the kids who were in it last year joining as well. And hopefully we'll get some other kids too who will want to just come in and do it. So we'll see how it goes. But it's a fun time. And I learned a lot last year and kind of I'm going to be more prepared this year now that I have the experience. So
yeah. Well, that's fun.
That's mostly what we got. Sunday school, we had our last Sunday school for the summer. I mean, they do a couple here and there throughout the summer, but that's going. The preschool at our church is having graduation on tomorrow, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good Shepherd had their preschool graduation tonight. I was not able to attend because I had a bunch of meetings, but yeah. And then on Thursday night, we will have our K through 8th graduation.
So,
at Good Shepherd. And actually, I'm glad you brought up VBS because I completely forgot our VBS at Good Shepherd. Well, it's actually like a collection of all three churches of Trinity and St. John's Pekin and St. John's Green Valley, Sam Prairie. All of us together. It's at Good Shepherd, and it starts on June 8th, which is a Sunday, but it's an evening VBS program.
Nice. That'll be fun.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So,
I think that's all we got. I don't nothing.
Yeah, that's all I got. Well, and that's all we got. So, hey, you know what? Thanks everybody for joining us whenever and wherever. But anyway, God's blessings to all of you, and goodbye.
Bye.